Felici, holistic career coach. Turn your healthy passion into healthy profits. Please help me welcome Gabrielle.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me and for letting me spend this time with you. As she mentioned, the topic is turn your healthy passion into healthy profits. And before we get into the real meat and potatoes of the talk, I want to ask you to go back in time with me a little bit. So we're traveling back in time to when I was about 3 years old. And I was this tiny little thing with gold ringlets and big brown eyes. And I was living in a dorm with my parents. My dad was in medical school. And we were living there in this tiny dorm together. And it was very idyllic. It was in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And we would go to Hershey Park and we would spend summers at the park together. And I would ride on my dad's shoulders and I felt really invincible. And then one afternoon, my parents were arguing in the kitchen, which was a tiny little studio kitchen. And I went in to kind of see what was happening, at which point my father started throwing punches at my mother and started beating my mother. And my mother picked me up and she took me into the bathroom and she locked the door. And she filled the tub up with water and she put me inside and I was hyperventilating and I couldn't catch my breath and I was overcome with the emotion of it all. And she said, "Calm down, stop being so dramatic." And at that point I stopped breathing. And I didn't start breathing again for about 20 years. I just stopped. And I held everything in as tight as I could, and I white-knuckled through everything, and the beating continued. It continued for a year, and 2 years, and 3 years, and 6 years, until he nearly killed her. And they separated, they divorced, he married another woman, same thing. And I did everything I could just to get through every day, with stress, with worry, with anxiety. And I didn't have any outlet, I didn't have any healthy tools, I didn't know what to do, I didn't have the things that we have now that we use to keep ourselves happy, healthy, and whole. So I got my first job, my first career was a modeling career. I moved to Manhattan, I was working as a fashion model in the city, and I went from one crazy storm into a totally new crazy storm. And that storm was a storm of alcohol and drugs and sex and money. And I remember being at a party at Tavern on the Green and Donald Trump was there picking up one model after another. And I was in that storm and my agency was telling me, "You're fat, you need to lose weight, you're fat, you're so fat." And they would measure my legs and they would measure my waist and they would tell me, "You need to stop eating." And so I would ask the other girls, "What are you doing? How are you staying so thin?" And they said, "You need to drink water and smoke cigarettes and you need to do nothing else." And so I didn't know what to do. And so I followed the advice. I took water pills, I starved myself, I lived on lettuce, I did all these things. And that lasted for about a year, at which point I was even more broken than when I had arrived. And I decided to leave. I decided I couldn't do this. It wasn't sustainable for me. So I went back home. I moved back in with my mother. And now I was bringing another problem home with me, which was an eating disorder, because I had forgotten how to eat. I just didn't know how to do it anymore. So I moved back in. Now I'm like 18, 19. I'm lost. I fall into this crowd of rowdy teenagers, and we're smoking weed, and we're partying all the time, and I have no sense of direction. I have no purpose. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. And then a really miraculous thing happens. So I get a call from my brother, and he says, "Mom's in the hospital, can you come meet me?" So I go to the hospital, and I meet with my mother and my brother, and my mom is suffering really bad. She has some kind of stomach pain. They don't know what it is. 24 hours go by, 48 hours go by, and the doctors say, "We need to do an exploratory surgery. We need to cut your mother open and see what's going on." Well, we discover that her appendix is ruptured, she's septic, it's too late, they sew her back up. And so gradually over the course of 30 days, she develops nosocomial pneumonia, respiratory things, and she dies in ICU. And so my brother and I had to organize and make the funeral arrangements and manage the whole thing, and I was 21 and he was 19. So that sounds tragic, but the miracle of the situation was the day that they took my mother into the funeral home and they had put her in the casket, she was in the casket, she's wearing a pink dress, her hair and makeup are done, and I walk up to the casket and I'm standing there with her, only she's not in the casket. She's hovering in the room with me. And it was as tangible as each and every one of you right now. She was in the room with me and she was telling me non-verbally, I'm not there, I'm here, and I'm fine, and you're fine, and I'm gonna be with you, and I'm not gonna leave you. And I had this overwhelming sense of grace and peace, and I had no grief. And I feel like that's the day that I was really born. Everything else leading up to that moment, it was nothing. In that moment, I knew something that I couldn't explain. I had no context. I grew up in a Catholic church, in a Catholic school. There was no explanation for this, but I knew it was my truth. I knew it was real. So then we go, and there's the whole caravan of people that go to the cemetery, and they set up the casket, and my family is weeping, and I'm sitting there in this like folded out chair, and all of a sudden, my mom starts doing this dance. And she goes into the tree, and she goes into the leaf, and there's a caterpillar on the leaf, and she's on the leaf, and she comes back out, and all of a sudden this veil opens, and she shows me this like energetic matrix, which I had no way of comprehending what was happening. It was like being on some kind of acid trip or something. There was just this crazy energy everywhere, and I knew I was energy, and I knew everything was energy, and that everything was connected to everything, and again, I had no words. I had no context. I didn't understand what was happening. I thought for sure if I told anyone, they would think I was insane. So I'm at the funeral, I'm giving the eulogy, I'm saying, Mom's okay, everything's gonna be okay, and everyone's weeping and suffering, and no one could hear what I was saying. So I started going to therapists, and I started going to priests. I started telling everybody, like, something happened, I don't know what happened, do you understand, can you explain this to me? And after I searched for about 3 years, I landed in a Zen meditation center in New York, and I started meditating, and I started reading Eastern philosophy, and I started discovering one healer, and then another healer, and then a yogi, and then someone else, and all of a sudden, people started to tell me an explanation for my experience. They started to tell me, of course the world is made of energy, of course we're not our bodies, we're something else. Of course that's transformed and it goes somewhere else. And I was like, oh my God, thank God I am not the only one who's ever had this experience. Thank God someone can explain this to me. And so I just dove in head first. I studied energy medicine and Buddhism and meditation, and I did Kundalini yoga training, and I did everything that I could to just get as much knowledge and as much information as I possibly could. And this was like sort of a hero's journey for me. This was sort of a discovery and finding mentors and finding people who could help me understand this new world view. And really the container for this new world was all the stuff that we study and we believe and we share, which is holistic healing and being a whole person and body, mind, and spirit. All of this. This is really the place where I landed. And so after a few years of really studying and really practicing, I moved into my PhD program. And my PhD program was in transformative studies at the California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco. And my advisor said to me, what are you the most passionate about? What do you want to do your research about? And I said, I want to understand what it means to be a healer. Not a doctor, not a coach. I want to know what it means to heal and to be a healer. And he said, great, let's find healers. And I went on a journey. I went to Tibet, I went to India, I went to Peru, I went all over the world, and I found healers to talk to. And I asked them, what is healing? What does that mean? What does it mean to heal? How do you heal somebody else? Can you do that? Is that possible? And I asked them all these questions, and then I wrote a 300-page paper about what they told me. And I looked for themes in their stories, and I gathered the history of women healers for the last 25,000 years, and how they served as midwives, and how they used their botanicals to heal, and how they were then burned at the stake and forced out of medicine, and then how they reemerged and came back into the medicine that we have today. And every single book and article and person and interview and everything, it was like feeding my soul. I was like, this is the most beautiful thing that I just have ever heard or ever seen. And so it took me about 5 years to complete my research, at which point my advisor invited me to teach a course at the university. He said, we have a lot of doctoral students, we have a lot of graduate students, and they're not making it through the program. PhD programs typically have a 50% dropout rate, and we believe that's because they're not taking care of themselves, because they don't have any self-care. Can you teach them self-care? Can you teach them what you've learned in yoga and energy medicine and nutrition and all these things? Can you help them? So I wrote a course for them, and I taught it for many years, and I feel like I found the thing that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I just wanted to teach. I wanted to teach people tools to transform their lives. That's all I wanted to do. It was like I found my home. I was like, this is home. And so I started reaching out to other universities. I started teaching at other universities. One job led to another and another. I was writing curriculum. I was giving talks. I was teaching all over the country. And I stayed in that space for about a decade. And it's a huge learning curve to go from being a student to being a teacher, to being able to stand in front of a group and say, I know something, and own that. And that transition of really coming into my own as a teacher and as a professor, that took a long time. It took a long time of trusting myself and trusting that I had something to share that was valuable for you and that you were going to get some kind of transformation out of what I was sharing with you. And I feel like that was an incredible journey. But somewhere there was like this whisper inside of me that says something's missing, there's something more that you should be doing. And I kept trying to suppress, and I thought, I have a PhD, like I teach at universities, like I'm badass, my students love me, all my evaluations every semester say, oh, she's so inspirational, like I'm fine, everything is fine. And there was this constant whisper, like, no, there's something else, there's something more, and it was like this like whisper of a calling, and I kept being like, I'm fine, everything's good, I love my life, this is a good life, you know, I have all these accomplishments, all this status. And then, you know, when the universe knocks, right, sometimes it knocks lightly, and other times it comes a little bit harder. So 2 years ago, my whole world flipped upside down again. So I get a call from the same brother that called me 20 years earlier, and he said, Gabe, can you come to the hospital? Dad has cancer. So I go to see my dad, and he had a cancer that started in his esophagus, and then it moved into his liver, and then it moved into his brain. And my dad had nothing good to say about my whole career. He said, you were into this woo-woo stuff. Why didn't you go to medical school? He was a neurologist and a psychiatrist. He knew better. He had $1 million practice. He gave depositions in the biggest cases. He would say to me, look, what are you doing? What are you wasting your time on that stuff for? That's not science. That's not science. You have a made-up PhD, he would tell me. You have a made-up degree, right? So I carried that with me throughout my career. It was fine that that was his opinion. He's entitled to his opinion. You know, he's entitled to his faith and his trust in Western medicine. That's fine, and there's a place for that. But I knew the work that I was doing mattered, and I knew that it was changing lives, and I was okay with that. So I arrived. He's broken. He's vulnerable. He knows the history of how he beat my mother, how he beat us. He knows that he's never had anything good to say about the work that I do. But now it's different, right? Because now he's dying. And now Western medicine can't do anything for him anymore. There's nothing they can do, right? So we start to have these really intimate conversations where he starts to say to me, Gabe, that's what my family calls me, Gabe. Gabe, do you know what's gonna happen when I die? And I was like, yeah, Dad, actually, I do know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be amazing. You're you're going to be fine. We're going to be connected. It's going to be good. We're going to be safe. Everyone's going to be safe. It's going to be peaceful. You're going to be so relieved. And all this burden and all the addiction and all the guilt and the shame and everything, you're not going to have any of that anymore. It's going to be gone. It's going to be fine. And so I was in a position to comfort my dad through a transition that I never in a million years, if you told me 10 years before that, 5 years before that, that I would be in that role, I would have told you, you're crazy. That guy's a fucking asshole. Why the fuck would I help him with his life transition? I would have told you, you're crazy. But there I was, and I was humbled. I was so humbled. And then he passed, and then he died. And then the universe gave me the second invitation, the second biggest invitation of my life. Whereas when my mother died, it was as if I saw the light. I saw all the good. I saw the energy. I saw the purpose. I saw what bliss the world could be. When my father died, I saw the shadow. I saw every limiting belief, every resentment, every ugly part of myself, every judgment that I had, my rage. All of a sudden, all of that was just like burning in me. And it was burning in me so much that my body was hot for months. There was like this heat all through my body, and every kind of like negative, judgmental, limiting, dark bullshit thing that I had inside me was just burning. And it was so painful. And every day it was an effort just to get up. And the first thing that I would do when I would get up after I put a foot on the floor is I would crawl into the shower and I would turn on the water as cold as it would go, and I would just stay in the cold water until some of the burning went away. It was just burning. And I let it burn through me, and I didn't run from it, and I didn't hide from it, and I didn't numb it. I just let it burn me, and I let it just burn away any kind of impurities or any kind of anything that was holding me back. And mostly, I think what it did is it just took away so much fear. Like so much fear of what if this, and what if they don't like me, and what if nobody believes me? What if they think I'm full of crap? Like it just took away so much fear, and that when it was finished, I didn't care anymore. Like I didn't care if they didn't like me. I didn't care if they didn't like what I was doing. I didn't care anymore. I was like, I know what I believe, and I know my experience, and this is what I'm going to carry forward. And then that's when the whisper made sense, because this story that I'm telling you, I've never stood in public and told this story before, ever. I've never been able to say what happened for fear. Oh, my dad will kill me, right?
Yes.
My dad will kill me if I get up in a forum and I say, this is my journey. Even though it's mine and it's my story, I couldn't give myself permission because he was here, and he was always hovering there as this like voice of, you can't do that. Like, who do you think you are? But now it's gone. And now I'm me, and now I can say my story, and I'm fine with my story. And so that whisper, I needed to sit and I needed to reflect, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? I need to tell the truth more. I need to show up, and I need to say more honestly what's going on. I need to be more forthcoming about the truth. I need to tell my story. I need to write my story. I need to talk about my story. I need to value myself more. I need to not give away all my work and all my knowledge, all my everything to universities that pay you pennies for what you have to offer, or for these one-on-one sessions, people don't show up, or whatever it is. I need to not devalue myself. I need to value myself. I need to have more self-worth. And I needed to ask myself, what does it mean if I'm really living my fullest potential? What does that mean? If I show up as big and as bright and as fantastic as I want to show up in the world, like, what does that look like? Well, that means I'm going to be on TV, and I'm going to be on the radio, and I'm going to have a podcast, and I'm going to have a book, and I'm going to have another book, and I'm going to give another talk at another conference. And that's what I did. Like, I exploded with creative energy. Like, my creative energy just went like through the roof. I couldn't stop writing and reaching out to people and connecting with people and sharing my story. And the response was just so beautiful. It was like I could relax and people could relax because I was showing up so much more authentically than I had before. And so for the last year and a half, I've been building this what is an online business, whatever that means. What it means is that I'm able to take my expertise and I'm able to share it with tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of people online. It's the most amazing thing in the world to be able to connect with people all over the world and do this kind of work. And so this is where we get to sort of the meat of what I wanted to share with you in terms of a takeaway and in terms of what does this all boil down to for you and for what you want to bring to the world. So the topic is about taking a healthy passion and making it profitable. How do you take what you love and how do you monetize it? How do you make money doing it? So I think that there's unlimited ways for people to take a really healthy passion, fitness, nutrition, essential oils, whatever it is, and to turn that into profit. And I've managed to do that so many different ways over the last 15 years. I've done it as a massage therapist in one-on-one bodywork session. I've done it as a Kundalini yoga teacher, teaching classes and teacher trainings. I've done it as a university professor. I've done it in so many different ways. And you can do that too. There's so many different ways that you can take whatever you care about and that you can bring it to the world. And so some of the ways that I teach that with my clients and in my classes is the one-on-one model. The one-on-one model is like the chiropractic model. It's the being with people face-to-face, one-on-one. Now that we have online, we can do that online or we can do it in a physical space. We can do classes. We can do physical classes like this. We can do online classes. It's a great way to reach people. We can build things in the community. We can build wellness centers. We can build conferences. We can have events. There's some remarkable events like Wanderlust, which is a yoga festival that goes all over the world. Like there's a mindfulness festival happening in Miami when we get back. There's these incredible events of consciousness where people are getting together to really share and indulge in all of these things that we care about, and we can be part of that. There's consulting that's available to us. A lot of us are in this role already. I know that you want to be in this role with Principles. So there's consulting that's available to us where we guide other people on a journey, somewhere that we've been that can benefit them. I had an opportunity to be a consultant at a university. They were trying to develop new degree programs, and they wanted to know, what does the marketplace need? What kind of degree would be appropriate? So there's those kinds of opportunities. There's writing opportunities. We already heard about this. We heard about writing books, publishing books, self-publishing books, traditional publishing, speaking. So speaking now, thanks to the internet, it can look like this. This is speaking. But it can also look like radio and TV and podcasts. And podcasts are so easy to set up. We were talking about this last night. You need about $20 and a laptop to set up a podcast. I mean, it's remarkable. And then you find people, you share your experience, you interview other people, whatever you want to do, you can put that out in a podcast for millions of people to find and to experience. And I have a very specific methodology, a 3-step methodology that I advise everyone to do whenever they're trying to take their passion and they're trying to create profit. They're trying to do their passion as a business. And that 3-step approach is investigate, reflect, and connect. Investigate, reflect, and connect. Investigate is where you find out what are other people doing in the world that's similar to what you want to be doing. So who's writing the books that you love? Is it Brené Brown, Elizabeth Gilbert, Gabby Bernstein? Who's writing the books? Who's doing the consulting that you want to be doing? We talked about this today. Is Harvard, do they have like a consulting program? Don't stop at the surface. Really dig online, go to conferences, ask questions, contact universities, contact organizations. Who's doing what you think you want to be doing? That's the investigation. When you do the investigation, you have to have a lot of different questions. Where are they getting their clients? How much are they charging? What kind of advertising and marketing are they doing? You really want to put on your private investigator hat, and you want to find all the information that you can. And then the second step that you need to do is you need to reflect. You need to reflect on yourself. What is the unique value, the unique gift that you bring to the table? So like Sherry's always doing her vlogging, like that's like her unique thing that she does. Felicia does her wraps, so she's taken her essential oils and she's brought it to a whole new level by putting it into wraps. I mean, what is your unique thing that you can show up doing in the world that's special and different? So it's not enough to have a passion for, I really want to help people with back pain. Great. I want to help people use essential oils for back pain. Great. If you look at the marketplace, and the marketplace has tons of that happening already, you're not going to stand out, you're not going to draw the people to you that you want. But then you put them in a wrap, and you write a story, and you create a community around the story and around the wraps, and you send it around, and now you have something that matters. Now you have something that's connected to people and community, and it's a unique contribution. And that's the kind of thing that's going to be successful in the marketplace. The third thing is connecting your gift to what the world needs. So you explored the marketplace, you saw that there's no directory for wellness professionals to network with each other. There's no LinkedIn for wellness professionals. And then you go, I know what I am. I'm a great connector. I'm a great networker. I'm great at bringing people together and publishing and promoting what people are doing. And then you put the two together and then you have the wellness universe. Then you have what you're good at and what the world needs. And they've come together, and that's the sweet spot. The sweet spot is when your gifts match what the world needs. If any of those pieces are missing, you're going to have a cake that's not going to rise in the oven. It's just not going to. And I talk to hundreds of people, hundreds of health and wellness professionals who say to me, I set up my website, I set up my Facebook page, nothing's happening. I mean, hundreds. Like, I do these discovery calls. I do sometimes 6, 7, 8 calls a day, every single day. And they say to me, I spent $5,000 to go to Integrative Institute of Nutrition. I spent $5,000 to set up my Infusionsoft and my sale. I spent $5,000 to put up an ebook. I don't have any clients and I'm not making any money. I mean, like hundreds and hundreds of people. And to me, it's devastating because I know how much you care about what you do. I know that all the students that have gone through the master's programs, the PhD programs, the yoga trainings, they all care so much about what they do, and then it just falls off a cliff once they get to the other side. So the other thing, in addition to not having total clarity about where your gift matches the marketplace, the other thing that is a huge obstacle, as I mentioned earlier, is fear. And fear is so wily and so clever, and it's a shapeshifter, and it shows up as perfectionism, like, oh, my website's not good enough yet, I can't tell anybody that I have a website. And it shows up as procrastination, like, oh, I'm gonna get to it, it's just I'm really busy, and the kids just went back to school, and you know how that is, and it shows up as procrastination. And it shows up as signing up for another program and another training because I just don't know enough yet. Like, what if somebody asks me a question and I don't know the answer? I don't want to tell them that I know something if I'm not totally ready. So you sign up for more programs, and then you're just spinning your wheels and you're not moving forward, and all of that is fear, and all of that is fine. But there are really direct, precise, easy ways to break through fear. And one of those is getting really, really clear about what are you here to do? What is your mission? What is your purpose? Why are you doing what you're doing? And keeping that mission and keeping that purpose at the forefront of your mind. So that when the voices come up, which they will, one of my friends calls it the itty bitty shitty committee, when those voices come up and tell you that you're a fool and it's never gonna work and you should be doing something else and whatever they're telling you, when that comes up, you know why you're doing what you're doing and you're super clear about it. That's the first thing. If you don't have clarity, the first chapter of the book that I wrote has a meditation. It takes you on a journey into the future and settles you into your future self so you can look around and you can see what you're doing and you can bring that back into the present moment. And if we have some time, I can walk you through that a little bit. The second thing is confidence. And I think that people are confused about confidence. I think people think that first you have confidence and then you do something. That's not the way confidence works. Confidence is you do it and then the confidence comes. You have to leap, and as you're leaping, the confidence is you building the plane on the way down. That's what the confidence is. The confidence is you doing and then believing that you can do it after you've already done it. Because if we wait until we feel like we're ready, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Not if it's something that's really big and really important. You really have to act and allow confidence to meet you. Remember that scene in Indiana Jones where he, I don't know if you've seen this, where he goes to walk across to get to the Holy Grail, and there's nothing there. It's just an abyss. And he's like, well, I need to get, and he just steps, and the rock comes to meet his foot. That's what you have to do. You have to step, even if it looks like you're stepping into an abyss. That's where confidence comes from. And the third is consistent action. Another thing that I see is like people dip their toe in the water and they take it out. And they dip their toe and they take it out. And they go and they get in halfway and they come back out again. And we need to have total and utter commitment and consistency to move something forward. If you've done anything well in your life, if you've raised a child, you can't like feed it on Monday and then come back like on Wednesday, right? I mean, anything that you're growing, that's alive, that's vibrant, that's healthy, you have to show up consistently, and you have to consistently give to that thing that you're trying to nurture and you're trying to build, and you have to be there for it all the time. And all these things that I'm describing can be overwhelming. I get really overwhelmed with all these things. Anyone who sat down with me this week at the conference knows I get overwhelmed with these things. So you have to create a support system around you. The advisor that I mentioned that invited me to teach the doctoral program to teach self-care, he was my mentor for 12 years. He went through every little tiny detail of my life with me and guided me how to make decisions about my career, how to write a resume, how to do an interview, how to write an article, how to get published. That was invaluable. And having mentorship and having support and having a community like this, where you can connect with peers, where you can mastermind with people, that's invaluable. And that's part of what I've created in my community. My community is called Women in Wellness. It's a community for women who are working in health and wellness. And we do mastermind calls, and we do coaching, and we have these conversations so that you don't get stuck at perfectionism and procrastination and all these things that hold you back, but that you move forward with the clarity and the confidence and the consistency that you need to be successful. If we can't see ourselves, and this was so much of what my journey was about, if we can't see ourselves holding a Nobel Peace Prize, no one else is going to be able to see it either. Like, we have to hold that. I don't care what it is, if it's like, you know, just making a living, or if it's having centers, or if it's having it doesn't matter. We have to see it, and we have to hold that. And that's a great vision to hold, because even if that's the horizon, you can keep moving towards the horizon. We can be on this ship for another 7 days, 10 days, 12 days together. We're never going to get to the horizon. But we're going to accomplish so much along the way. And if we're moving and holding that in the forefront of our mind as our compass, then that's going to guide us, and it's going to guide the choices that we make and all the things that we grow and we build while we're trying to get to that place. So it's perfect. It's all perfect. So thank you so much for your time and attention.
Oh, thank you.